My heart was pounding so fiercely I was certain Trevon could hear it from the other side of the room. I lay there in our expansive queen-size bed, struggling to maintain calm, even breaths, peering through slits in my eyelids as my husband of 6 years meticulously lifted the wooden planks by our bedroom window. This wasn't the Trevon I recognized. This wasn't the gentle man who made my morning latte and kissed my temple before I left for work. The shape crouched on our bedroom floor moved with the precision of someone who'd practiced this ritual 100 times. His hands worked quickly, silently, lifting each floorboard without so much as a whisper. And then I saw it, the thing that froze the blood in my veins. Hidden beneath our bedroom floor lay a metal case about the size of a briefcase. Trevon opened it with the care of someone handling something priceless. Even in the dim light spilling in from the hallway, I could see it was stuffed with papers, photographs, and slim booklets, passports, multiple passports. I wanted to scream. I wanted to jump up and demand answers. But something primal inside me warned me to stay perfectly still, to keep pretending I knew nothing, especially about whatever he'd been adding to my nightly herbal tea. Because yes, my unease had been justified. The bitter aftertaste I kept ignoring. The long, heavy sleeps that wiped out every memory until morning. The odd sensation that items in our home had shifted during my rest. Trevon had been sedating me. But observing him now, seeing him sift through papers and images in that concealed container, I grasped that the sedatives were merely the prelude. This was far grander and far more horrifying than I'd envisioned. Let me rewind and explain how I arrived at this point. Reclining in my own bed, terrified of my own spouse. 3 hours prior, I'd been at our dining table, gazing at the mug of peppermint infusion Trevon had just set before me. It was our ritual. Every evening at $9,000, Trevon would steep me a cup while I wrapped up professional correspondence or caught a show. He always chose the same green porcelain cup, always stirred in precisely 1 spoonful of agave, and always lingered close until I drained it. "Tough shift at the firm?" he inquired, easing into the seat opposite me. His hazel eyes appeared worried, affectionate, the same eyes that had gazed at me with adoration on our wedding day. "Yeah, the Henderson project is causing headaches," I answered, cupping the steaming vessel. The infusion aroma was standard, minty and calming, just as ever. But recently, I detected that harsh edge, like a pill had been dissolved in it. "You ought to sip it and unwind, Trevon suggested, and I detected a note in his tone. Was it impatience? "You've been pushing too hard these days." I raised the cup to my mouth, but rather than imbibing, I merely mimed a swallow. Trevon observed me closely, and when I didn't truly ingest, I noticed a subtle scowl crease his brow. "Anything off with the brew?" he questioned. "No, it's okay, just scalding," I fibbed, simulating another gulp. This time I allowed a minuscule amount to graze my tongue, and there it was, that bitter synthetic flavor that had no place in peppermint infusion. My palms began to quiver faintly. After weeks of doubt, I finally possessed confirmation that something was gravely amiss. "I'm heading to the restroom," Trevon announced, rising. "Drain your brew while I'm away." "Sure." The instant he exited the kitchen, I dashed to the basin and dumped the whole contents down the drain. Then, I hastily replenished it with plain water and a dash of agave to mimic partial consumption. My pulse raced as I caught Trevon's footfalls returning along the passage. "All finished?" I declared, displaying the vacant cup upon his re-entry. "Good girl," he replied, and the phrasing sent chills across my skin. "You should turn in shortly. You seem exhausted." He was correct. I did appear fatigued. But this evening, I wouldn't permit whatever substance he'd administered to render me insensible. This evening, I intended to uncover what my husband truly did while I slumbered. I proceeded with our standard nighttime regimen, flossing my teeth and slipping into nightwear while Trevon streamed a program below. As I settled into bed, I ensured our bedroom door remained ajar to detect his movements throughout the residence. Around 10:30, I heard Trevon switch off the screen and ascend the stairs. I promptly shut my eyes and endeavored to render my respiration profound and rhythmic, mimicking genuine repose. Trevon lingered in our threshold for an eternity, merely observing me. Then he murmured my name. "Kayla, Kayla, are you alert?" I remained silent. I sustained my breathing uniform and my form entirely immobile. He uttered my name more emphatically. "Kayla." Still no reaction from me. At last I heard him depart, but he didn't retire. Instead, his steps descended again, and I detected him rummaging in his study. For the subsequent hour, I reclined there, attuned to Trevon placing calls. I couldn't decipher the dialogue, but his timbre was altered, more grave, more professional than I'd known. Occasionally, he appeared to adopt an inflection I didn't identify. Near midnight, Trevon returned upstairs. I heard him halt beyond our bedroom once more, then softly nudge the door wider. My heart thumped so vigorously I was convinced he could perceive my torso heaving, yet I compelled myself to stay absolutely still. That's when Trevon performed an act that altered all. Rather than joining me in bed as he had nightly for 6 years, he approached the window area of our chamber and dropped to his knees on the floor. I heard a gentle grating noise, like timber on timber, and I ventured to part my eyelids marginally. Trevon was dislodging the floor planks. And now here I was, witnessing my husband, the man I cherished, the man I'd entrusted with my existence, extract a steel container brimming with enigmas that could shatter all I believed about him. He was examining photographs now, and though I couldn't discern them sharply, I could tell they depicted women, various women, women who weren't me. Trevon placed the images aside and retrieved one of the passport-like booklets. He flipped it open and scrutinized the contents, then fished his device from his pocket. Employing the device's beam, he contrasted an element in the passport with something on his display. That's when I beheld his countenance plainly in the illumination, and what I observed there petrified me beyond all else that night. Trevon was grinning, not the tender, devoted grin I knew. This was icy and scheming, the grin of an individual immensely satisfied with their ingenuity. It was the grin of an outsider. As I observed him meticulously restore everything to the container and reposition the planks, one query echoed in my thoughts. Who was the man I'd wed? And what had he intended for me? 3 weeks prior, I was merely Kayla Dawson, a 62-year-old marketing director with rich mahogany skin and tightly coiled graying hair, who believed her chief dilemma was securing the Henderson contract. I had no inkling that my whole existence was founded on deceptions. It commenced on a Tuesday evening in early March. I recall because I'd just arrived home from an especially taxing day at the office, and Trevon was already in the kitchen assembling supper. The aroma of his signature lasagna sauce permeated our modest home on Oak Avenue, and all seemed utterly ordinary. "How went your day, darling?" Trevon queried, agitating the sauce with one hand while grasping my preferred cup with the other. Even after 6 years of matrimony, he still brewed my infusion every single night without prompting. "Draining," I responded, depositing my bag by the counter. "The Henderson folks want to overhaul their whole campaign approach 3 weeks prior to rollout. Janelle and I devoted 4 hours in sessions today attempting to resolve it." Trevon nodded empathetically as he primed the kettle. "That sounds awful. Good thing you have your infusion to aid relaxation." I beamed at him. Trevon had always been considerate that way, recalling the minor details that delighted me. When we initially dated, he discovered I favored peppermint infusion before bed, and he'd prepared it for me since. That night, I consumed my infusion while we viewed a film together on the sofa. Trevon had his arm encircling me, and I felt secure and cherished as always with him. But midway through the movie, I began feeling extraordinarily lethargic. "I think I need to retire," I slurred, my speech feeling dense and sluggish. "Of course, love, you've endured a lengthy day," Trevon stated, assisting me from the sofa. "I'll join you shortly." I scarcely recollected ascending. Next, it was dawn, and my alarm blared. I felt foggy and disoriented, as if emerging from the most profound slumber imaginable. "Morning, gorgeous," Trevon said from alongside me. He was already attired for the day, which was odd since he typically rose after me. "What time did you come up?" I inquired, massaging my eyes. "Oh, around 11, Vin," he replied nonchalantly. "You were resting so deeply I didn't wish to disturb you. Something seemed amiss, but I couldn't identify it." I staggered to the bath and observed my phone on the bedside, yet I swore I'd left it powering on the bureau, and my notebook, which I invariably left ajar on the workstation, was shut. "Trevon, push," I summoned. "Did you shift my items last night?" "What items?" he responded from below. "My phone and notebook. They're not where I placed them." "You were quite weary, Kayla. You likely just misremembered their spots." Perhaps he was accurate. I'd been depleted recently, laboring extended hours on the Henderson contract. It was plausible I'd be more absent-minded than normal, but in the ensuing days it persisted. Every evening I'd drink my infusion, plunge into an unfathomably deep sleep, and awaken feeling as if I'd been comatose rather than merely dormant. And each morning I'd discover minor objects repositioned in our chamber. My handbag would be in a marginally altered location. My professional files would be rearranged. Once I found my notebook warm upon touch in the morning, despite certainty I'd powered it off the prior night. "I think I'm unraveling," I confided to my closest friend Janelle during lunch the next week. We occupied our habitual nook at the small bistro near our workplace, and I prodded my greens while striving to articulate the peculiar sensations I'd experienced. "What do you mean?" Janelle asked, her deep brown eyes brimming with worry. "I keep imagining someone's rifling through my belongings while I rest, but that's absurd, right? It's just Trevon and me in the home." Janelle furrowed her brow. "That doesn't strike me as absurd. What sort of belongings?" "My notebook, my handbag, work papers, trivial things. And I've been sleeping so profoundly lately that I recall nothing from bedtime until my alarm." "How profoundly?" I pondered. "Like Trevon could likely ignite fireworks in our chamber and I'd remain asleep. It's abnormal, Janelle. I've never been such a sound sleeper." Janelle set down her wrap and regarded me earnestly. "Kayla, when did this commence?" "About 3 weeks back, right when I began the Henderson project." "And you're certain nothing else altered? No new meds? No routine shifts?" I shook my head, then paused. "Well, Trevon has been brewing my infusion nightly, but he's always done so. It's not novel." Something flashed across Janelle's expression, but she held back initially. "What?" I pressed. "Likely nothing," she replied cautiously. "But perhaps you should monitor how you feel post-infusion, just to exclude any sensitivities or such." That evening, I did monitor. I noted the infusion tasted subtly distinct from usual. There was a bitter undercurrent I'd overlooked, and within 30 minutes of completing the cup, I felt scarcely able to keep my lids raised. But the most alarming occurrence transpired around 2 a.m. I stirred briefly, just momentarily, and I could have sworn I heard Trevon's voice from below. He was conversing with someone, but his tone was altered, harsher, more solemn than I'd known. When I arose the following morning, I queried him about it. "Were you on a call last night?" Trevon appeared startled. "No. Why?" "I thought I heard you speaking to someone." "You must have dreamed it, darling. I retired right after you." But I knew what I'd perceived. And for the first time in our 6-year union, I began pondering if my husband was deceiving me. The notion struck me during another restless lunch with Janelle. We were at our customary bistro again, but this time I could hardly ingest a bite. My gut was knotted from 2 weeks of escalating mistrust toward Trevon. "I need certainty," I told Janelle, nudging my uneaten wrap across my dish. "I can't persist like this, wondering if I'm deranged or if something's truly occurring." Janelle inclined forward, softening her voice. "What are you contemplating?" "I want to film myself sleeping, position my phone to capture the chamber, and observe what transpires after the infusion." "Kayla, that's—" Janelle halted, mulling. "Actually, that's quite astute. If nothing occurs, you'll realize you're merely stressed and perhaps seek aid for the sleeplessness. But if something is occurring, then I'll have evidence." I concluded. That evening, I felt as if readying for life's pivotal act. I positioned my phone on the bureau, oriented to encompass most of our chamber. I ensured it was connected so the power wouldn't fail, and I initiated recording just before Trevon delivered my infusion. "Here you are, love, very good," he said, proffering the familiar green cup. "Extra agave tonight. You seem to require it." I compelled a smile and imbibed the infusion routinely, though each swallow of that acrid fluid made me want to retch. Within 20 minutes, the accustomed heavy somnolence tugged at my eyes. "I'm so weary," I murmured, which wasn't pretense whatsoever. "Rest well, darling," Trevon said, kissing my temple. "I'll join soon." The final recollection was Trevon extinguishing the chamber light. Upon waking the next morning, Trevon had departed. He'd left a memo indicating an early conference and return that afternoon. My fingers trembled as I halted the recording on my phone and noted it had documented over 8 hours. I accelerated through the initial hour, observing myself shift restlessly before becoming utterly inert. Then, near midnight, Trevon materialized in view. What I witnessed froze my veins. Trevon didn't merely retire as he'd claimed. Instead, he loomed over me for minutes, uttering my name, and even nudging my arm softly. When I failed to react, he grinned, that identical frigid grin I'd later witnessed when he accessed his hidden container. Then Trevon exited the space, and I watched myself recline like a lifeless form for another hour before his return. This time, he bore my handbag. I viewed in dread as my husband perched on the bed's edge and examined every article in my handbag. He snapped images of my license with his device. He jotted details from my cards. He even unfolded my office ID and photographed both faces. But that wasn't the gravest. After perusing my handbag, Trevon approached my notebook on the workstation. I watched him activate it. Somehow he knew my code and devoted nearly an hour navigating my directories. He captured screens of work files, duplicated data from my inbox, and even entered my digital banking. Throughout, I lay oblivious, wholly vulnerable, while my husband infringed every facet of my seclusion. Around 3 a.m., Trevon placed a call. He spoke softly, but my phone captured portions of the sound. I maximized the audio and attended closely. The schedule remains viable, Trevon was stating. I should possess all necessities in the next 2 weeks. No, she suspects zilch. The compound functions flawlessly. Yes, I comprehend the hazards, but this one's distinct. She accesses more assets than the others. The others? What others? Trevon's voice proceeded, but he whispered so faintly I couldn't discern the remainder. Upon concluding, he restored all precisely, kissed my temple anew, and slumbered beside me as if unperturbed. I sat on my bed that morning, fixated on my phone display, sensing my world implode. The man I'd wed for 6 years, the man I'd adored and trusted utterly, had been methodically amassing my private data while maintaining me senseless with some drug. But why? What aimed he with my card numbers and work papers? And who were those others from the call? I contemplated alerting authorities, but what to report? That my spouse inspected my handbag, accessed my notebook. Legally, we were wed. Wasn't my property his too? No. I required further details before approaching officials. I needed to fathom what Trevon truly schemed. I phoned Janelle and requested a coffee meet during her midday break. I have the footage, I informed her as she settled. And Janelle, it's dire, it's profoundly dire. I displayed the video on my phone, observing her complexion blanch as she saw Trevon probing my possessions. Kayla, this isn't mere odd conduct, Janelle stated post-video. This is felonious. He's sedating you and pilfering your info. But why? What could he desire with my card details? He accesses our accounts regardless. Janelle fell silent briefly, her thoughts churning. Kayla, she uttered at last, I think you must contemplate that Trevon isn't whom you believe. Janelle acted swiftly. The morning following my footage reveal, she feigned illness at work and devoted the day probing Trevon's past. What she unearthed worsened all. We must convene privately, Janelle said upon calling that afternoon. Her tone quavered, alarming me since Janelle never faltered. Can you escape the home? I informed Trevon of grocery errands and met Janelle at Brookside Park, about 20 minutes from our area. She occupied a bench surveying the Cedar River, clutching a bulky dossier on her knees. Kayla, sit, she directed upon my approach. What I'll disclose will be tough to absorb. My limbs weakened as I joined her. What did you uncover? Janelle opened the dossier and extracted several sheets. I began with fundamentals. Trevon's job record, his social security, his academic history, matters verifiable for someone married 6 years. She proffered the initial sheet. It was a print from Apex Tech Innovations' site, where Trevon purported employment. I contacted them this morning, requesting Trevon Harris in development, Janelle explained. They said no such employee exists. I gaped at the sheet, bewildered. Impossible. Trevon commutes daily. He receives salaries. He mentions colleagues. I know it's difficult, but continue, Janelle said softly. I also performed a background via an online service. Kayla, Trevon's social security mismatches his name in federal records. She displayed another print. And this, I hunted Trevon Harris across social platforms. His profiles on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all originated 7 years ago. Not refreshed, originated 7 years ago. My fingers quivered as I examined the proof. 7 years ago, but we encountered 8 years back. Precisely, meaning Trevon fabricated his digital persona 1 year pre-meeting you. Kayla, I doubt Trevon Harris is his true name. I felt nauseous. That can't be. We possess a marriage license. We filed jointly. How could he forge that? Janelle withdrew more documents. Identity fraud is prevalent, especially with apt abilities and means. See this. She presented a print from the Washington Department of Licensing. My cousin at the DOL checked Trevon's license. The image matches your spouse, but issued 7 years ago as lost replacement. No prior record of Trevon Harris licensing in Washington. Other states? I verified. No matching Trevon Harris by description or age ever licensed in Oregon, California, Idaho, or Montana. It's as if he materialized 7 years ago. Breathing grew laborious. Janelle, what do you imply? I'm implying the man you wed has operated under alias since pre-you, And from that recorded call, I doubt you're his initial target. The term target struck like a strike. Target of what? Janelle paused, then extracted one final sheet. I researched marriage scams and identity theft. Kayla, organized syndicates prey on accomplished women, wed them, siphon identities and holdings, then vanish. The FBI terms them romance fraudsters, but they're far more refined than that. She directed my attention to an article she'd printed from the FBI's website. Look at this pattern. They fabricate false identities, invest months or years cultivating relationships with their targets, then methodically collect personal information while keeping their victims oblivious to what's occurring. The sedatives, I murmured. Precisely. It's the ideal method to obtain everything they require without the victim realizing. Bank account details, social security numbers, professional credentials, family connections, everything someone would need to entirely appropriate another person's existence. I recalled Trevon's phone call, his reference to the others, and discussion of a timeline. Janelle, do you believe he's done this previously? I think it's highly probable. And Kayla, I think you could be in grave peril. We remained quiet for several minutes, observing the river glide by while I attempted to absorb everything Janelle had revealed. My whole marriage was a fabrication. The man I cherished didn't even exist. What should I do? I asked at last. First, we're heading to the authorities. This exceeds what we can manage alone. But what if they dismiss me? What if they view me as merely an overly suspicious spouse? Janelle gripped my hand. You possess proof, Kayla. The footage, the background investigation, all this inquiry. And if Trevon truly is scheming something, we need law enforcement engaged before it's too late. Too late for what? Janelle's face was somber. I don't know. But individuals who exert this much effort to pilfer identities typically aren't intending to simply vanish discreetly. They're aiming to evaporate entirely, and they can't risk leaving survivors. The ramifications of her words struck me like a freight train. Trevon wasn't merely appropriating my identity, he might be intending to eliminate me. There's another thing, Janelle said softly. Tonight, I believe you should challenge him once more, but this time we'll be prepared for whatever he attempts. That evening, Janelle stationed her vehicle 3 blocks from our home and trekked through the forest behind our community to situate herself where she could view our bedroom window. We had settled on a cue. If I faced imminent threat, I would flick my nightstand light on and off thrice. Detective Xavier Brooks, whom Janelle had reached out to that afternoon, was doubtful but consented to station a squad car nearby. We'll require solid proof of an offense before we can detain him, he had informed us. But if your husband is genuinely plotting something, tonight could provide what we need. I proceeded with my usual nighttime routine, striving to appear composed while my heart thundered in my chest. Trevon appeared more at ease than typical, nearly jovial as he assembled dinner and inquired about my day. You seem upbeat tonight, I remarked, observing him whistle while he prepared the meal. Just contemplating the future, he replied with that grin that now caused my flesh to prickle. I have a sense things are about to shift for us very soon. When 9,000 arrived, Trevon delivered my infusion precisely on time. I had rehearsed this instant all afternoon. How to simulate sipping while actually allowing the fluid to collect in my cheeks, then ingesting just sufficient to detect the bitterness, but not enough to render me senseless. Sip it all, darling, Trevon urged, observing me more closely than usual. You're going to require your slumber. Something in his delivery sent shivers along my spine. I feigned consuming the infusion while Trevon sat opposite me, and I observed he repeatedly glanced at his timepiece. I'm feeling weary already, I stated after a few moments, which wasn't completely pretense. Even the minimal quantity I'd swallowed was inducing drowsiness. Good, Trevon responded, and there was something altered in his tone, something conclusive. Why not go up to bed? I'll join in a bit. I ascended and slipped into bed, leaving our door marginally ajar just as the previous night. But this time I battled the lethargy, pinching myself and nipping my tongue to remain aware. Around 11:30, I detected Trevon's footfalls on the stairs. He lingered in our threshold for an extended period, then summoned my name multiple times. When I failed to reply, he neared the bed and actually raised my eyelid to verify if I was insensible. Content that I was dormant, Trevon departed the room. But rather than heading to his study as before, I heard him enter our spare room. There was the noise of something substantial being shifted. Then Trevon's steps returned to our bedroom. What transpired next was even more horrifying than I'd envisioned. Trevon proceeded directly to the window and commenced dislodging the floor planks just as I would observe 3 weeks later. But this time, I could perceive everything distinctly as he unlocked that steel container. The initial item he extracted was a dense bundle of currency, more cash than I'd ever witnessed in one spot. Then emerged the passports, and I could discern there were at least 5, all bearing Trevon's image but varying names. But it was the snapshots that made me desire to shriek. Trevon arrayed the assortment of pictures on our bedroom floor, and I could see they were images of women, diverse women, all approximately my age, all with rich, dark skin like my mahogany complexion. Some of the images appeared captured without the women's awareness. Shots of them departing employment, entering vehicles, stepping into residences. One image chilled my veins. It was a news clipping with the headline, "Local Woman Vanishes." The photo depicted a beaming woman named Rochelle Simmons from Portland. Per the report, she had vanished without trace 2 years prior, abandoning a thriving marketing profession and a residence later discovered stripped of all valuables. Trevon retrieved his phone and placed a call, speaking in that unfamiliar inflection I'd overheard before. "Everything proceeds as planned," he said quietly. "The accounts are primed for relocation, and I've secured all the paperwork necessary. Yes, I grasped the schedule. The departure is reserved for Thursday. No, there won't be any unresolved matters this time. I've absorbed the lessons from Portland." Portland, where Rochelle Simmons had disappeared. Trevon persisted in conversing, and I caught snippets that accelerated my pulse. "The residence will be cleared by Wednesday. Make it appear as if she departed willingly. New persona is already set in Vancouver." Vancouver. He was scheming to repeat this in another city to yet another woman, but first he needed to dispose of me. Trevon concluded the call and withdrew what resembled airline vouchers. Even from across the chamber, I could see they were one-way passages to an overseas destination, dated for Thursday, merely 3 days hence. Then Trevon performed something that validated my direst apprehensions. He extracted a small glass vial containing transparent fluid and a hypodermic. "Sorry, Kayla," he whispered to my ostensibly oblivious form, "but you've fulfilled your role. Thursday morning, you're going to experience a very regrettable mishap." I lay petrified in fear as Trevon meticulously returned the vial and hypodermic to the container. My thoughts raced. Thursday morning was only 2 days away. Whatever Trevon was devising, my time was dwindling. After Trevon repositioned the planks and retired, I waited until I heard his regular respiration before cautiously extending for my phone. My hands trembled so severely I could scarcely compose the message to Janelle. "Contact Detective Brooks immediately. Trevon has toxin planning to eliminate me Thursday." I didn't slumber at all that night. Each time Trevon stirred in bed beside me, I pondered if he had altered his intent about delaying until Thursday. When dawn arrived, I had to feign normalcy while my husband, my prospective assassin, prepared my latte and kissed me farewell. "I'll be laboring late tonight," Trevon stated as he directed toward the exit. "Don't stay awake for me." The instant his vehicle exited our driveway, Janelle and Detective Brooks were at my entrance. "Reveal everything," Detective Brooks directed, without expending time on courtesies. I guided them upstairs to our bedroom and indicated the spot near the window. "The plank is right there. He conceals everything beneath." Detective Brooks knelt and delicately lifted the boards, exposing the steel container precisely where I anticipated. When he unlatched it, even he appeared stunned at what we discovered. "Lord," he muttered, extracting the bundle of cash. "There's got to be $20,000 here." But it was the additional contents that truly captured his focus. Along with the counterfeit passports and snapshots of women, there were comprehensive dossiers on each target. Rochelle Simmons from Portland was included along with 3 other women from various cities. Tamika Lewis from Los Angeles, Malia Gomez from Phoenix, and Ariana Patel from Denver. "Look at this," Detective Brooks said, holding up a folder bearing my name. Inside was all. Duplicates of my birth record, social security card, financial details, professional qualifications, even images of me that I'd never encountered before. "He's been orchestrating this for months," Janelle said, perusing the documents. "Perhaps longer." Detective Brooks uncovered something else that caused my stomach to plummet. A meticulous schedule scripted in Trevon's handwriting. It delineated his complete scheme from building confidence through resource relocation to something marked final resolution Thursday. "We need to apprehend him during the act." Detective Brooks stated, "Kayla, I know this is frightening, but we require you to challenge him tonight. We'll equip you with a wire and station officers around the residence." "What if he attempts to end me prematurely?" I inquired. "We won't permit that. The moment he executes any menacing action, we'll intervene. That evening felt like the most protracted of my existence. Detective Brooks had concealed minuscule microphones in my attire and positioned officers in unmarked vehicles throughout our community. Janelle was in a vehicle down the block, overseeing all. Trevon arrived home around 8,000 Shusars bearing takeout from my preferred Ethiopian eatery. I thought we could enjoy a pleasant meal together, he said, appearing more relaxed than I'd observed in weeks. Just us two. We dined in comparative quietude, and I could scarcely savor the cuisine. Trevon repeatedly checked his timepiece and seemed exhilarated about something. Trevon, I said at last. I need to question you about something. Of course, love, what is it? I inhaled deeply. I know about the sedatives. Trevon's utensil halted midway to his lips. For a mere instant, his facade crumbled, and I perceived something frigid and perilous gleam in his eyes. I don't comprehend what you mean, he replied cautiously. The acrid flavor in my infusion, the manner I've been sleeping so profoundly. I know you've been medicating me. Trevon placed down his utensil and examined my countenance. Kayla, you've been under considerable strain lately. Maybe you should consult a physician. I already possess evidence, I stated, withdrawing my phone. I filmed you rummaging through my possessions while I was senseless. This time, Trevon's demeanor transformed utterly. The affectionate spouse vanished, supplanted by someone I didn't recognize. You filmed me? His voice was altered now, sterner, with hints of that accent I'd heard during his calls. I know about the forged passports, Trevon. I know about Rochelle Simmons and the other women. I know you're planning to eliminate me on Thursday. Trevon rose gradually, his hands balled into fists. You have no conception what you're involved with, Kayla. Then enlighten me, I said, endeavoring to maintain my voice firm. Tell me who you truly are. Trevon chuckled, but there was no mirth in it. You want to know who I am? I'm someone exceptionally skilled at my craft. And my craft is extracting everything from women like you. Your finances, your identity, your existence, and then I vanish. How many women have you slain? Enough, Trevon said icily. And you were going to be the final one. I was intending to retire post this operation, but now... He began advancing toward me, and I could see the deliberation in his gaze. Now I'm going to have to adapt. Trevon took another stride toward me, and I could see him delving into his pocket. That's when Detective Brooks's voice resounded through the concealed amplifiers the authorities had installed around our home. Trevon Harris, or whoever you truly are, this is the Seattle Police Department. The residence is encircled. Step away from Kayla and place your hands where we can observe them. Trevon stiffened, his hand still in his pocket. For a moment, bewilderment traversed his face as he surveyed our dining area, attempting to determine the voice's origin. You ensnared me, he said, pivoting back to me, with unadulterated loathing in his eyes. I safeguarded myself, I responded, astonished by how steady my voice resonated. Something you never afforded Rochelle Simmons or the others an opportunity to do. The front entrance erupted open, and Detective Brooks surged in with 3 other officers, their firearms ready. Hands up now! Trevon slowly elevated his hands, but I could see him assessing, searching for an egress. You have nothing against me, he said composedly. I'm Kayla's husband. We were merely conversing. We have everything against you, Detective Brooks said, maintaining his armament fixed on Trevon. The phony passports, the pilfered identities, the elaborate schemes to assassinate your wife, and courtesy of the wire she's donning, we just overheard you admit to multiple homicides. That's when Trevon executed his maneuver. He abruptly lunged toward the rear entrance, but Officer Ramirez was already there, obstructing his route. Trevon whirled and attempted to dash toward the stairs, but Detective Brooks subdued him before he could attain them. Let me go, Trevon bellowed as they restrained him, and for the first time I heard his authentic accent distinctly. It sounded Eastern European, perhaps Ukrainian. You don't comprehend what you're contending with. We comprehend perfectly, Detective Brooks said. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, identity theft, fraud, and we're going to append numerous more charges once we conclude investigating your other targets. As they escorted Trevon away, he turned back to regard me one final time. This isn't concluded, Kayla. Individuals like me, we have allies. We have means. You'll never be secure. Yes, she will, Detective Brooks said resolutely. Because individuals like you always commit the same error. You believe you're more intelligent than everyone else, but you're not. You're just felons, and felons get apprehended. The ensuing hours were a haze of police interrogations, evidence gathering, and communications. Janelle remained with me throughout, clasping my hand while I provided my account and responded to what felt like hundreds of inquiries. Detective Brooks informed me that Trevon's real name was Deontay Kuznetsov, and he was sought by the FBI in relation to at least 6 comparable incidents nationwide. The women I'd viewed in those snapshots weren't merely targets. They were all deceased, slain after Deontay had appropriated their identities and depleted their finances. "You preserved your own life tonight," Detective Brooks told me, "but you also assisted us in capturing someone who's been shattering families for over a decade." The proceedings lasted 8 months. Deontay attempted to assert he was merely a swindler, not a slayer, but the proof was irrefutable. The FBI had discovered remains in 3 different states, all women who had been wed to Deontay under varying aliases. The toxin in that file matched the compound detected in Rochelle Simmons' system when her remains were ultimately found in a reservoir outside Portland. Deontay was condemned to life imprisonment without parole eligibility. I relocated to Miami 6 months after the trial concluded. I couldn't remain in Seattle, couldn't reside in that home where I'd uncovered that my entire marriage was a deception. Janelle aided me in packing and we drove along the coast together, halting at every picturesque viewpoint to capture images and remind ourselves that the world was still magnificent. It required 2 years of counseling before I could slumber through the night without terrors. It required 3 years before I could consume infusion again, and it required 4 years before I was prepared to trust another individual sufficiently to embark on a date. But I endured, and more crucially, I discovered that I was more resilient than I ever realized. Today, I collaborate with the FBI's Victim Assistance Division, supporting other women who've been preyed upon by romance fraudsters and identity pilferers. I share my narrative at symposiums and support gatherings, and I've assisted in apprehending 3 other offenders who were employing Deontay's techniques. Occasionally, people inquire if I regret wedding Deontay, if I wish I'd never encountered him. The response is intricate. I regret the anguish and the dread, but I don't regret evolving into the person I am now. I'm more robust, more vigilant, and more resolute to assist others than I ever was previously. Deontay was mistaken about one aspect. This tale was concluded the instant those restraints fastened. He's expending the remainder of his life in a cement enclosure while I'm existing freely, aiding other women to reclaim their existences.